Some videos ago, I made a video on Ragna from Ragna Crimson that solely focused on him because he was the main character. But in the comment section, someone asked to make a video on the manga of Ragna Crimson, so that's what I'm doing. Now, I did go over the motivation of Ragna in the other video, but if you don't want to watch that one, I'll just give you a simple oversimplification here, which is Ragna was the weakest, but he ended up becoming the strongest, or at least one of the strongest in his verse, after he fused with a future version of himself, which immediately made him a threat in his universe. After this, he ended up leaving with the sole goal of killing all dragons in existence. Kinda. Now, wondering what I mean by kinda, there are some people with dragon-like traits, but not really a dragon. But Ragna's sole purpose is to kill people who are fully dragon. Now, if you're wondering what kind of vibe this manga carries, it's kind of an edge revenge story vibe. Now, at first I thought it was going to be a terrible story that tries to be overly serious, but to my surprise, that actually wasn't the case. And the reason I feel like this is because not really Ragna, but more because of the side characters. They are being used to make up for Ragna's shortcomings when it comes to like a funny element wise type feel. Speaking of side characters, let's talk about the main group that accompanies Ragna, and that would be Crimson and his servants. Her servants. Its servants. Now, believe it or not, Crimson is actually the other half of the show, meaning when Ragna is not on screen, it's most likely going to be Crimson on the screen. I mean, obviously the show is called Ragna and Crimson, so it kind of makes sense. By the way, Crimson is a he/she, meaning that it changes his or her gender at will. Now, he mainly does it most of the time when he's in some form of disguise, but that's neither here or there. Let's talk about what's most important about Crimson, and that's the fact that he's a former dragon monarch. And yes, that does in fact mean that he is a dragon. Now, if you're wondering why Ragna hasn't killed him yet, it's because he can't. Not because Crimson is stronger than him, but it's the fact that Crimson is immortal 99% of the time. So no matter how many times Ragna kills him, he won't stay dead. But this is actually a good thing, because Crimson actually has a main goal, and what is that? It's easy, the destruction of all dragons, even though he himself is a dragon. And Crimson wants to use Ragna to complete this goal. Now, when it comes to the way the story be moving, I'm glad they introduced Crimson and his crew, because this was solely based off of Power and Ragna. I ain't gonna lie, I think this would be a terrible story. But since Crimson and his servants, especially Slime, bring some form of entertainment, or at least small form of comedy sometimes. Because Crimson and his crew can just straight up be out of pocket. But another thing I love between the relationship between Crimson and Ragna though, is that even though they have the same goal, they have entirely different intentions of how they go about it. Because even though Ragna is extremely good, Crimson most of the time is extremely evil. And this makes for a good story, or at least a compelling one. Now that we basically talked about that stuff, let's talk about some of the character designs, which I ain't gonna lie, can be hit or miss. Cause you look at some characters and be like it's completely genetic, and you look at others like, yeah, it's top tier. Especially characters like Gilzy. Hoping to see more of her in the manga, by the way. And speaking of manga, if you're interested in reading, I'll say probably now's the time, because it's still ongoing, but it doesn't have too many chapters. It currently has a run spanning across 78 chapters so far, with Ragna right now joining a group called the Sun Code, which is extremely strong fighters. And from looks of it, it looks like this Sun Code is finna fight another bloodline faction. And I won't lie, whenever a fight comes up in this manga, it's usually pretty good. It just sucks that most of the fights, I'll give a good about 60% involves Ragna, which is not bad, but I'd like to see other people fight. But overall though, it's a pretty good manga, especially if you're into like battle shonens or battle shiins, things like that. I haven't really seen what tag this belongs to, but if that's something you're more into, I'll say give this a try. I'll rate it a smooth 7.5 out of 10, so a solid read. And if you made it to the end of this video, let me know if you've seen or even read Ragna Crimson. And if you got a manga that you would probably want to see me make a video on, put it in the comments and I'll get to it.